You know, I don't, Bob, I'm sure that's probably just an artificial background, but for your sake and all of ours, I hope it's real someday, and I hope it's real for all of us someday, especially after this legislative session ends. So,
Mayor Ramsey is the wearer of a lot of hats, including being the chair of the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and as such, that brings her up to the Capitol pretty frequently. She was there with us this morning, and Mayor, we really appreciate all of your engagement, and then so many other people that are engaged legislatively during this time. But that's not the primary focus of our meeting today. Let's see, it's 1:34. Let's go ahead and get started here, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this WFRC new member orientation. I'm Andrew Gruber. I'm Executive Director of the Wasatch Front Regional Council. I have the great honor and pleasure of serving in this role, where we get to work with and support you in your communities. That's our objective. And I see on this meeting here with us folks from all over our region, city and county elected officials, staff, our partner agencies, so many colleagues and friends, and we welcome all of you. And for those of you that we have not spent much time with yet, and you're coming in new, in particular, I want to say thank you and welcome to you. And we look forward to working with you to promote great quality of life in our region for now and for generations to come. The purpose of what we're doing here today is kind of to do a whirlwind tour of what WFRC is, some key issues at play in our region that we work on, and to introduce you to the team, the great staff at WFRC who is here to help you. And we're going to go over a lot of information today, kind of rapid fire, and there is no test at the end. We just want you to have a general sense for what WFRC is and have an understanding that who you can contact, that we're here for you. So I'll also say that if we cover stuff today that you want to dig deeper into, we're going to sort of skim the surface today. We'd love to talk with you in more detail offline later. Please feel free to reach out to any of us at any point. But I'm now going to turn a few minutes to Mayor Dawn Ramsey, who's the mayor of South Jordan, who is the current chair of the Wasatch Front Regional Council. Mayor?
thank you, Andrew. Hey, hello, friends. A lot of you I know, not quite all of you do I know. And so I look forward to getting to know you better. Welcome. And thank you so much for being on here today. We do have some seasoned veterans on here and a lot of new faces, and we welcome you. And I just want to say thank you for your willingness to participate and be part of Wasatch Front Regional Council. The name is what we really are. We are a council made up across the entire region of elected officials. We have a lot of input from our professional staff, and between us, we represent a strong majority of the residents of the state of Utah right here in this council. And as such, it is critical that we make plans for the future, that we work on this long-term plan. You're going to hear a lot more about this today, but as we are designing our own plans and as we're looking at the state going forward as a whole, one of my favorite sayings that I like to use is that we need to think regionally and then act locally. And that's what Wasatch Front Regional Council is all about. Nobody at WFRC tells any of us what we have to do. We work together collaboratively and say, this is what we're doing in our community. This is what we want in our community. And as we bring that together and create a holistic plan, it helps us grow in the right way as we marry transportation and transit choices with land use and economic development. It all matters. None of these subjects are single silos. They all matter. So as we work together, I look forward to getting to know some of you better and to seeing some of my old friends as we bring these issues and challenges and goals and aspirational things and the visions of our community that our residents have elected us to represent them to make happen together into a comprehensive plan, and that we recognize that we are greater together than we are individually, and that as we continue to work together, we can make sure Utah grows and prospers, and that the Wasatch Front is a place where we will all continue to love to be. So just thank you for your engagement. We have an incredible staff here. If you've not worked with the staff at WFRC yet, you are in for a treat. They are uh, experts in planning and technical support and all the things that we need. We have outstanding staffs at our cities, but I think we all reach point here and there, different projects where we need additional expertise. And that's where WFRC can really help make a difference. They can help point us toward funding. They do so much. So never hesitate to reach out to the staff. If you ever have any questions for me or I can answer anything, please never hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. And with that, thank you for being here and officially welcome to Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Mayor, thanks so much for your words of welcome and for serving as chair of WFRC and all the time you put in. We really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview, and then we're going to run through other folks in our office who are going to give you information. So let's get rolling here. Let's go to the next slide. So WFRC, it's what are we? Our mission, as you can see here, is Wasatch Front Regional Council builds consensus and enhances quality of life by developing and implementing visions and plans for a well-functioning multimodal transportation system, livable communities, a strong economy, and a healthy environment. Now, let me just clarify, we're a public agency that serves this mission, this purpose. And the roles that we have are these four here: as a convener, facilitating collaboration with our communities and partners; as a technical expert, we seek to be trusted subject matter experts to you; as a planner, at the core of our work is planning, proactively planning for the future of our region; and then also an implementer. A plan is no good if it's not put into action. So we work with you to put visions and plans into action. Next. Now, WFRC actually, this is an acronym-rich environment, okay? We actually serve two technical functions. One is as an association of governments, and the other AOG, and the other is a metropolitan planning organization, an MPO. And you can see in blue by county the geographic boundaries of our responsibilities. Every county in the state is in an association of governments, and for that purpose, we have Weber, Davis, Salt Lake, Morgan, and Tooele counties. And then as a metropolitan planning organization, which is specifically focused on transportation planning, our region is Salt Lake, Davis, Weber, and Southern Box Elder County. You can see the other organizations, MAG, BRAG, et cetera, on the right side, the gray area, that's the technical rural areas. Transportation planning there is coordinated by UDOT. But again, WFRC, we serve a function generally helping our communities as an AOG. And then the majority of our role is as an MPO, a metropolitan planning organization, doing transportation planning on the Wasatch Front. Next. Okay, the structure, what you see here, and I should have noted this earlier, Nate, at the beginning of this meeting, Nate Curry, our communications manager, dropped a link to the agenda that we're following today into the chat if you want to look at that. And then we'll be dropping links to other things as we go here. And I will say, if you have questions as we go and you don't want to speak up in the big group, feel free to drop a note in the chat, and we'll respond to your questions there as well. Okay, so the committee structure, you see the Wasatch Front Regional Council itself, that's the governing body, and it's made up of 19 voting mayors and county elected officials around the region appointed by the Cox. UDOT and UTA, and then other members of the legislature and other organizations participate. And of course, Mayor Ramsey is our chair, and Commissioner Bob Stevenson from Davis County is our vice chair. Now, I'm not going to go over all the other boxes, other than to say that we have many committees that serve different purposes that are all, again, aimed at building consensus around topics, bringing together stakeholders from around the region on critical topics of transportation programs, long-range growth and development, economic development, and other activities. And if you look, most of the committees you see here ringing WFRC are made up of elected officials. And then if you look along the bottom row there, we have technical advisory committees that are made up principally of the staff from the communities, the professional staff from the communities. So we said we like to build consensus. You can tell we also like our committees. We work really hard to bring stakeholders together from the region to try to reach shared objectives for our future. And those of you that are thinking, oh, I'm a new member and I'm on a committee, hopefully you're seeing yourself on here. One committee that I realize is not actually represented on this chart, but should be, and I think we will do this going forward, is our Wasatch Choice Community Advisory Committee, which brings not necessarily governmental stakeholders, but other community representatives in to provide input into our work as well. Okay, next slide. Now is when I get to, I have one more. What we're going to do as we go through this, we're going to have slides like this that just show you our people and how we're sort of grouped. You can just start to get a sense of who we are. So leadership and external affairs, Ted, who we're going to be turning to in a moment, is our deputy director and chief planner. Miranda is our government affairs manager. If you don't get Miranda's weekly government affairs update email and you would like to, please just drop a note in the chat to everybody or to her, and we can add you to that email update. Nate, our communications manager, is keeping everybody informed with sharing information in social media and putting out other information to all of our communities, and would love to work with you and your communications professionals to help tell your stories. And then Madison is our local administrative advisor, which means she focuses specifically on helping the smallest communities, cities and towns in our region with the basic functions of running a government. And then the next slide is when I actually do turn it over. I'm going to turn to Kevin to talk about our organizational operations team. Kevin.
Oh, no, it's all gone. Okay. Hi there. I'm Kevin. I do HR and finance, but we are the organizational operations team. And Marion is our CFO. Andrea is our senior executive assistant who does compliance and procurement. Rosie is another executive assistant who does community outreach. And Jordan's our office administrator. And we support, as I stated, finance, our annual external audit, human resources, council meetings, broader community outreach, and general collaboration between our transportation partners. And our intent is to provide a seamless connection between you, the committee members, and our staff.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. I'll also just note one of the important things that the Org Ops team does is oversees the budget for WFRC. We're a public agency, and we take very seriously making sure that we have accountability and transparency and prudency in the use of our resources. So if anybody at any point has any questions about our budget or our funding, we're not going to go into detail on that today, but we would be more than happy to share with you information about that and answer any questions that you may have. Okay, moving on, we're going to now, I'm going to turn to Ted Knowlton, who again is our deputy director and our chief planner, to talk about the Wasatch Choice vision for our region. Ted.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. And it's great to be with all of you here today as well. You may have heard about Wasatch Choice. The Wasatch Choice vision is the foundation behind so much of what we do here at Wasatch Front Regional Council. Growth has been our constant companion in Utah my whole life. And in the face of rapid growth, everybody has more comfort when they know that together we have come together to develop a game plan to address that growth and ensure that we have high quality of life as we move forward. And that is the Wasatch Choice vision. If you go to the next slide, I'll just highlight that there's a website, wasatchchoice.org, that covers this, provides the goals and strategies, tools and resources, case studies, and the like. Next slide, please. This is a process that has involved so many organizations. You can see them on the screen here: Transportation Partners, Utah League of Cities and Towns, the Chamber, so we have private interests as well. But if you go to the next slide, The crux of this is that it is grassroots driven. We've had a process where we've explored with local governments, with our board here at WFRC, what should we achieve in the future? What are our goals, scenarios? What are different ways to achieve those goals? Let's have a conversation about them. Let's land on our preferred strategy overall. And then let's make sure that the details of that vision resonate and reflect what each individual local government wants in their area. Let's prioritize what we want to work on first, and then have that wrapped up into the Wasatch Choice vision. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what this vision is. Go to the next slide. For starters, it addresses our transportation plan, Utah's Unified Transportation Plan. You'll hear more about that here in this meeting. It includes a framework for what you want to accomplish in your communities for land use. It also includes the economic development strategy, comprehensive economic development strategy for the region as well. So it's the marrying together transportation, land use, and economic development. If you go to the next slide, high level, the vision rests on 4 key strategies. These are 4 key strategies that make a lot of sense for individual communities to be thriving and for the region as well. Transportation choices, that we have real choices in how we can get around. People can easily reach their destinations in the way they want to. We have housing options, housing types and locations that meet the needs of all residents. That as we grow, we hang on to our parks and public spaces, ample and convenient parks, public spaces, and open land, city and town centers, that we create and enhance city and town centers as the hearts of our communities, walkable areas with places to live, work, and play. And if you go to the next slide, and as you explore the wasatchchoice.org website, you'll start hopefully with a high level that this is about the broader region. So this covers a large geography of roughly Brigham City in the north, all the way down to, Payson, southern Utah County in the south. It is a partnership with Mountain Land Association of Governments. It includes the Wasatch Back, Morgan, Summit, Wasatch County, Tooele counties. That's the geography. It's regional in scope. It is long-term. It's looks out to 2050, but it doesn't focus on the things that we ought to do in decades to come, but how do we get to a desired future that preserves our quality of life? Now, go to the next slide. What we're doing is we're zooming into an area so I can just show you the elements as they come together on the Wasatch Choice framework. And you can see them all there, all of these components that tell the story of transportation, land use, and economic development coming together. Go to the next slide. I'm pulling it off, and I'll add these back in just so I can highlight the individual components. Go to the next one. What's the road framework that we are working to develop over the coming years? Next, public transportation. These are lines like you can see the brand new OGX in Ogden, but there are new lines that we will create together. Next. What about our trails and active transportation framework? The ways that we can help people that choose to get there on foot or bike, get there safely. Next. Centers. These are city and town centers. You can see different colors that relate to a different hierarchy of these places. These all came from local governments as they thought about, hey, where do we want to create great gathering places in our communities, and that also makes sense as places to allow more growth and development. You can see a metropolitan center in Ogden. You can see an urban center there in Layton. You can see a neighborhood center in Clinton, just to give you an example. It's not one size fits all. It carries the characteristic and desires of each individual community. And the location of these, if you go to the next slide, you can see how go ahead and start bringing these all in together, Rosie, if you would. Oh, forgive me, go one back. I'm sorry. Why would I forget this? Our parks and public spaces layer, which is not at all least, even though it was last, and even though I had a little issue of remembering that, but critical element as we grow that we hang on to that. So forgive me. Now go to the next one, start bringing them in, and you can see we've got the road and we've got the transit, we've got the city and town centers. Now reflect on the location of the city and town centers, how they coordinate with road, transit, active transportation opportunities. And that it's really the question of how these things come together and how they're coordinated that helps us maintain our high quality of life as we move forward. There's a very much a where matters kind of question about the alignment of these components. Now, we've modeled in we forecast the future, we do it for transportation planning, and we've done this to understand also what are the benefits of us working together to implement the Wasatch Choice vision. Go to the next slide. And one more. We forecast that if we work towards this vision, we coordinate these elements, transportation, land use, economic development, that people on average will be able to get to 30% more job opportunities within a typical commute. We have a term for that, access to opportunities. Next slide. That by having just a little bit more of our region become these great city and town centers, it saves a lot of land. More housing and in jobs in those kinds of settings, it takes pressure off of our existing neighborhoods and our rural areas, so they don't have to absorb as much growth. And that means that we can serve 35 square miles of natural and agricultural land over the next few decades. Next slide. That also then relates to a savings of $5 billion in local infrastructure costs that we, by a lot of it through those city and town centers being vibrant in each community. And next. And then that likewise, there's less land that is being irrigated if we have a little bit more of our growth occur in city and town centers, 3 billion fewer gallons of water per year based on the vision. The vision is not one size fits all. It is about providing choices that people can live, work in ways they want to that resonate with their particular wants and needs. And I think that, let's go to the next one. I invite you, if you're interested, to go to wasatchchoice.org, learn a little bit more about it. There's a whole bunch of resources that, for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into. But as you get more acquainted with the work of WFRC, you'll see the Wasatch Choice vision, this framework, set a foundation for so much of the great work that is happening around the region, both locally and regionally as well. So, Andrew, I think that's it for me, and I hope I didn't rush, but give you a little bit of an overview of the Wasatch Choice vision.
Thank you, Ted, so much for going over that. The Wasatch Choice vision is really the umbrella for all of the work that we do here. And it really confronts the reality that Utah is growing, and we know that we can't take our quality of life for granted. So we have to work together to make good decisions and to preserve and even enhance that quality of life for generations to come. And that's what the Wasatch Choice vision is. Utah is growing, and we have a plan. And I'll just emphasize one more thing about it. Ted said this already, and Mayor Ramsey said this up front. We are never going to try to substitute our judgment for yours. That's not what we do. You know your communities the best. What we are here to do is provide support and assistance, resources, and then also take your local needs and preferences and help think through with you how they fit within a broader countywide or regional perspective, looking long-term and looking at the interplay of housing and transportation, economic development, parks and public spaces, as Ted said, but in support of what you were trying to accomplish. There's no one size fits all, but we all work within a broader region, and it's important to think that way and think long-term for generations to come. Okay. Ted, thank you. We're now going to shift gears to our long-range planning group. Ted was just talking in the Wasatch Choice Vision broadly about all these topic areas. And now we're going to focus in more on transportation and long-range planning for transportation. And I'm going to turn to Jory Johnner, who's the director of the Long-Range Planning Group. Jory.
Thanks, Andrew. Again, Jory Johnner, director of Long-Range Planning Group. I want to introduce the long-range planning team. So we've got, you can see the names on the screen, includes Julie Bjornstad. She's our senior planner in charge of financial modeling, external forces and policy, resiliency, helps with policy and policy analysis, and is the Morgan County liaison and RPO lead up there. Hugh Van Wagenen, not with us today on the call. They're out on field tours, looking at our TIP programming. He's our active transportation planner here at WFRC.
Jory,
yes.
You're already up to 2 quarters that have to go in the cup for using acronyms. Jory said RPO for Morgan County. That's a rural planning organization. And then he said the TIP, that's the Transportation Improvement Program. Now, I know I just said Transportation Improvement Program, and some of you are like, I still don't know what that is. You will know later in this meeting, but I'm acronym police. So
yes, I
appreciate
that. I'll probably get to a full dollar at the end of this, but I'll try my best not to. Hugh also not only works on our long-range plan, but helps local communities with funding and implementation, active transportation tours. If you hear the word mobile active transportation tour or a MAT, that's what that would be. And is our staff lead for our active transportation committee, or ATC, that Andrew showed you on our organization chart. Lauren Victor focuses on transit planning and leads our equity work. And Che Mosqueda leads our long-range planning, roadway planning and studies, and focuses on freight, advanced air mobility, AAM, if you see that around, and safety planning. So I'm going to jump in, take a couple minutes just to introduce the Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP, and the Utah's Unified Transportation Plan. So at any point, if anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me and ask. So the Regional Transportation Plan is multimodal. It includes roadway, transit, and active transportation, which is made up of walking and biking and other modes outside of a vehicle. As you can see on this slide, there are many examples of the variety of mode types within our plan. And even more importantly, the plan is developed in coordination with you all, UDOT, Utah Department of Transportation, the Utah Transit Authority, UTA, and local communities. I'm doing my best, Andrew, not to get those acronyms. The Regional Transportation Plan is developed on a 4-year cycle. It has a financial plan and is fiscally constrained, conforms to, oh, sorry, I should have said next slide. Go one more, Jordan, I apologize, or Rosie, thank you. Financial plan is fiscally constrained, conforms to applicable controls, goals, and budgets for our on-road mobile sources. So that's our air quality conformity. You'll hear more about that later as well, and ties to your future land use plans and the Wasatch Choice Vision that Ted had just talked to us about. The RTP is divided into phases, each of them about a decade long, for both identifying when projects are needed and when funding is expected to be available between now and 2050. And as a reminder, the Regional Transportation Plan is the starting place for projects to move forward in prioritization of federal, state, and local funds. And our last plan was adopted in May of 2023. Next slide. Since the adoption of the 2023 to 2050 Regional Transportation Plan, WFRC staff has debriefed with UDOT, UTA, local communities, and the other metropolitan planning organizations. And internally, we've developed a schedule and scope for the work on our 2027 to 2050 plan, with the intent for that plan to be adopted in May of 2027. So as you can see on this slide, we're planning to work on some scenario development, including multimodal review, work with safe, user-friendly Beehive bikeways in the Utah Trail Network, review on improvement of our external forces and policy work that we've done in the last plan, all that within our first year. We'll then move into drafting a preferred scenario for the plan. So this is a list of projects that are needed by 2050. And then we'll move into identifying when those projects are needed and work with the fiscally constraining the plan. You can note here with the stars during that timeline that the Wasatch Front Regional Council, UDOT, and UTA will host fall workshops with local community representatives made up of elected officials, planning commissioners, city managers, engineers, planners, economic development staff, with the intent to get your input and feedback on the plan. So look for those calendar invites coming around the August timeframe, and usually those meetings happen within October, November annually. We also utilize our Regional Growth Committee Technical Advisory Committee, so we're fortunate to have both of our chairs on this meeting with us today, and we coordinate with UDOT and UTA and meet with key stakeholders throughout our process. Next slide. And lastly here, before I turn it over to Bert, is to highlight the Utah's Unified Transportation Plan. It's an effort that includes all the state's metropolitan planning organizations, UDOT and UTA. All of the long-range plans in the state of Utah are coordinated on a variety of levels and ultimately combined into the Utah's Unified Transportation Plan. We've been coordinating on the financial assumptions, statewide performance measures. We have a unified interactive map and active transportation for nearly 2 decades, and we still remain as the only state to have a statewide plan in the nation. With that, open any questions, or Andrew, I'll hand it back off to you, and then you can hand it to Bert.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jory. And again, that regional transportation plan and Utah's Unified Transportation Plan that Jory is describing, it's the official transportation plan for all regionally significant projects. So UDOT, UTA, and even cities and counties, you know, those projects have to be included in those transportation plans to get funded and to proceed. The regional transportation plan that Jory talked about is spearheaded by the Regional Growth Committee, one of our committees that some of you participate on. Now we're going to turn, as Jory said, to our analytics group, and I'll turn to Bert Granberg to introduce the group. Bert.
Thank you, Andrew. So my name is Bert Granberg, and I lead the analytics group at WFRC, and we have a great team of 7 other folks, and they include Andy, Susie, Chad, Josh, Bill, Chris, and Sarah. We're all color coordinated. I guess everybody at WFRC is color coordinated in these photos. But if you go to the next slide, we basically do 3 things. I like to think of it this way. We do a lot of mapping, working with maps. Hopefully everybody likes maps, map data, map analysis. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that we maintain a land use model for the Wasatch Front area together with our sister and metropolitan planning organization for the Provo-Orem area, which goes by the acronym of MAG, Mountain Land Association of Governments. So lots of mapping and GIS, lots of land use modeling, and then we also build and maintain and support the regional travel demand model. So models, forecasting, and mapping are sort of the 3 components of what we do in the analytics group. And with all this work, we're trying to better understand and communicate existing transportation and land use conditions. I think everyone's familiar with their neighborhood, maybe a couple other areas in the region, but it's really hard to get a region-wide perspective, and we try to help support being able to see everything that's happening in the region with maps and analysis. And then also with data and tools, we build a lot of interactive maps. We help with project prioritization for the money and funding that gets programmed and planned. And we also do scenario analysis where we're looking at what if scenarios. You know, what if these transportation features get built sooner, or what if this land use development happens more intensively? Our models and our analytics work can help to support decision making around different future scenarios. Next slide. So the models and forecasting effort like we're trying to answer these questions. Where will new development happen? And I think you maybe next, yeah, thanks, a click. And that's our real estate market model, which simulates future development, taking into consideration existing conditions on the ground and sort of the types and intensities that local governments are envisioning for different areas of their community. Where will people live and work? That, we take our modeling work and we roll that into a household and job forecast for the region. And that's a forecast that's trying our best to predict where people will live and work every year through 2050. And our crystal ball is not perfect, but we think we end up with a pretty good product. And we do this across 3,500 small areas of the region that we call traffic analysis zones. We also roll those up into city level forecasts for population, household, and employment. Okay, the third question is, how will we get there? That's our travel demand model. That model takes into consideration where people live and work in the future, the options that are available to them for getting around, the infrastructure, the existing infrastructure and the planned and infrastructure and the timing of when that comes online, trying to look at what the volumes will be on roads, when they will need to be expanded, what the transit ridership will be, and even how people will use bikes and just pedestrian travel to get around. And the last question is, how well does our transportation system and land use pattern work together now and in the future? And those that question ends up taking the form of a number of different information resources that we produce, like our traffic forecast and our congestion forecast, transit ridership. And then I'm going to skip down to the last one, which is a metric called access to opportunities, which is a measure of how well people can connect to the things that they need in their daily life. A lot of that working on access to opportunities, or ATO for short, focuses on access to the workplace, how close are people to jobs and employment. But we also look at other key destinations, things like community centers, healthcare, grocery stores, schools, etc. Okay, next slide. All right, and I believe this is our last one. We try to take the work that we have to do and package it into resources that can be used for other purposes across the region. And we've got a couple of resources we want you to be aware of, hopefully to utilize. One is a map gallery that we maintain at maps.wfrc.org. We've got almost 40 different online interactive maps that you can access there on different topics. Some of them are sort of the core WFRC program areas, but others might just be something that we think is interesting to share about the region. In the WFRC newsletter, we have for the last 4 years featured a section called the Map of the Month. And often the maps in the map gallery will have been featured in the Map of the Month series in the newsletter. We'll try and roll out a new topic and a diversity of topics in every newsletter. So look for those. We also make those travel and land use forecasts available to the general public, to other agencies. For example, the Water Resources Division of the state does water planning, and they use our forecast for where people will live and work. So that's a cool collaboration. And then, for people who actually like to work with the raw data, we have a data portal. We try to publish everything openly that we think will be of value to others. So you don't have to come knocking on our door to find what's out there in terms of regional data resources. We've got a website that will let you explore that. And we try, unless we've got a reason not to, we try to work to publish the data sets that we produce, so others can pick them up and run with them. And I think that's my section. So I'll turn it back to you, Andrew. I think you're going to introduce Wayne next.
Bert, thank you very much. Appreciate that. As you can tell, everybody, there's lots of analysis and data and mapping that's available to all of you to use in your work, that also ties into all the other work that we're describing. And just to make sure we're trying to tie these pieces together. We're growing really fast. We're trying to maintain and enhance great quality of life. So we have the Wasatch Choice vision, which we all work on to develop together. There's a component of that, that's the long-range transportation plans. Jory talked about that. There's data and analytics and mapping that supports all of that work. Bert talked about that. And now I'm going to turn to Wayne Bennion. We've been talking really about sort of long-range planning, and now we're going to get more into the short term, what happens in the next handful of years. And I'll turn to Wayne Bennion to talk about short-range planning and programming. Wayne.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I have the opportunity to lead the short-range planning and programming team and introduce the members of the team. Ben Withridge, who's our Transportation Improvement Program Coordinator and is our lead for the federal funding transportation capital improvement programs that the Regional Council administers. And then Kip Billings is our air quality analyst, specialist. And so today I'll just cover a bit about the Transportation Improvement Program and also talk a bit about air quality, which are two of our key responsibilities in the short-range planning team. Next slide. So the tip, every year we have the responsibility to prepare a list of projects over the next 6 years to which funding has been committed. And these include highway, transit, and active transportation projects, and from all funding sources. And I'll just note that, as has been alluded to before, or earlier in the presentation, major highway and transit projects, including such as new construction or adding lanes on a highway or building rail, passenger rail infrastructure or bus rapid transit or even core bus routes, first need to be identified in the regional transportation plan before they can have, or as they have funding, then as they have funding committed to them, they are able to be included in the Transportation Improvement Program. You'll see on the left of this slide the four federally funded programs that I mentioned earlier that the Regional Council is responsible for administering. And next slide. Then this next slide talks about both the process for development of the Transportation Improvement Program and also the annual cycle of programming or adding new projects into those four programs that I mentioned. And I'll just note that each fall or each September, we seek letters of intent from the local communities where you can apply for funding in one of these four programs, as well as another program that Meg Townsend will talk about. And so let's see, next slide. And the numbers, the actual numbers shown on this slide vary from year to year on this slide and the next slide. The purpose of these two slides is simply to illustrate that the amount of requests that WFRC receives for funding always exceed the amount of funds available. Next slide. So that previous slide showed for the Ogden-Layton urban area, and this is a slide illustrating the same concept for the Salt Lake urban area. Now we'll jump to
Wayne.
Yes.
Let me just interject. Go back one slide if you would. So we've been talking about planning and technical resources, and I just want to be clear. We also, WFRC also, as Wayne is saying, awards funding principally for transportation projects in the region. Okay. So for those of you that are representing communities and you're trying to think about how can we address the needs in our communities, particularly transportation, we have funding resources in the range of $45 to $50 million a year in total of awards that we make for road, transit, and active transportation, bike and pedestrian projects around the region that goes through the evaluative process that Wayne was just describing. Wayne noted this already, but we also provide additional assistance in local technical planning. And as you noted, Meg is going to talk about that in a few minutes. I just wanted to highlight that there are resources available to you. I'll say one more thing, because I've already stolen the mic from you for a moment, Wayne. Some folks were saying in the chat that it'd be helpful if we could send out the slides and everything. And as Nate's been dropping a lot of information in the chat as we go, we will follow up and send around to everybody a link to the slide deck, as well as to this presentation, because I'm just sure that you're loving this so much that you're going to gather with your friends and family and you're going to say, you've got to sit down with me over the weekend and we have to watch this together. So to friends and family, when you're watching this on repeat, thanks for joining. Okay, Wayne, back to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Good clarifications. So I'll start with, in terms of air quality and WFRC's responsibilities, I'll first start with a little background and then talk about our responsibilities and then conclude with a bit about trends. So by way of background, the Environmental Protection Agency sets national air quality standards for various pollutants, and they also designate areas across the country as either attaining those standards or not attaining those standards. And you can see in the Wasatch Front region, EPA has designated us as a non-attainment area for a couple types of particulate matter and also for ozone. Next slide. So, and maybe click to get both. Thank you. Yes, all of that. So for non-attainment areas, the State Division of Air Quality is required to prepare a plan to show how they will attain the standard for various types of pollution emitted across the region. And so that's referred to as a state implementation plan. WFRC's responsibility, that state implementation plan sets limits for emissions from cars, passenger cars and trucks, passenger vehicles, and those are referred to as mobile source emissions. So within the SIP, there are limits identified for mobile source emissions, and WFRC has the responsibility to prepare what's called a conformity analysis and demonstrate that the forecast emissions associated with implementation of the transportation plans will not exceed those limits established in the state implementation plan. So that's just very brief, but hopefully gives you a flavor for the work, some of the air quality work that we do. Next slide. And finally, just to note, some of you may be aware of this, but the size of these pies in these charts, in this chart, indicates that transportation, or that all emissions within the Wasatch Front region have been decreasing and are forecast to continue to decrease. So that's one point from this slide. A second point, you'll notice that that orange color representing emissions from passenger cars and vehicles has also been decreasing and is forecast to continue to decrease. And that's in large part due to cleaner or technologies that allow us to have fewer emissions, fewer pollutants coming out of our private vehicles. And then, of course, also elements, transit and active transportation can help decrease those mobile source emissions as well. So thanks for your time, and I'll turn it back to Andrew.
Wayne, thank you. And just so everybody's clear again, the reason that we're talking that Wayne is talking specifically about air quality is because under federal law, we as an organization have a specific responsibility to make sure that the transportation plans that are adopted conform to the applicable air quality standards. Water is another issue that's critically important to our development. We don't have a technical water responsibility in the water space, but when we do our planning, we can consider and coordinate with others about the availability of water, but we haven't gone into detail on that because we don't have a formal responsibility. We wanted to make sure you were aware of the formal responsibility we have in the air quality space. Wayne, thank you very much. Now we're going to turn to our community and economic development team, which also is here to provide assistance. You know, we talked before about one of our key roles of being an implementer. It's in large part the work of the Community and Economic Development Group to help you in your communities to implement your visions and the broader Wasatch Choice vision in a way that works best for you. For that, I'm going to turn to Meg Townsend. Meg.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll introduce the team a little bit here. So the Community and Economic Development team is made up of myself, along with 5 planners. Everybody kind of touches the work of our group in general, but also has some areas of focus. So Christy Dahlberg, planner, she works on our small cities community development block grants, as well as our transportation and land use connection program and other things you'll learn about here. Byron Head, a planner, he may be helping your city with a station area plan. Marcia White, she is principally our economic development lead, as well as works on some of our planning programs. And then we have Tim Watkins and Matt Ryan, also planners here, working with some of with all of your communities on various technical assistance activities. And I'm Meg Townsend, our Community and Economic Development Director. Here's a bit of a summary of our what the Community and Economic Development Group is here to help you with. So we're helping implement a lot of what you've heard about today on the local level, implementing the Wasatch Choice Vision through planning technical assistance, like our transportation and land use connection program, which you'll hear more about here in a moment, along with our station area planning. Through economic development, we have our Wasatch Front Economic Development District. We're at EDA sanctioned EDD. Marcia White will talk a little bit about that group. We work to produce the comprehensive economic development strategy along with that group, our economic development district, and various other resources like our small cities community development block grant that Christy Dahlberg will tell you about, and general plan assistance and other things. I mean, if you have a planning need, think about our team. We're here to help, and it's likely that we have resources for you. First, I'll jump into our transportation and land use connection program. We can go to the next. Thanks. TLC meets communities wherever they are. You know, if you're in your early visioning stages or you need ordinance updates, we're here to help with that. It's all about implementing the Wasatch Choice Vision and implementing certain goals that we have through TLC, which we call this program, like maximizing the value of investment in public infrastructure, enhancing access to opportunities, increasing travel options to optimize mobility, and creating communities with opportunities to live, work, and play. So we fund plans and studies, we can fund policies and ordinances, we can work on implementation strategies. Maybe, you have a great plan for your center and you want to talk about how to really make it happen. Lots of things under the planning technical assistance umbrella. This is a program that follows the same planning application cycle as Wayne talked about. So applications are due in December with letters of intent due in September. We have partners on this program. UDOT, UTA, Salt Lake County are all partners on this transportation and land use connection program. And often, they provide partnership funding, but they also provide assistance along the way throughout some of these projects. So a really great way to tackle some of your tougher planning projects. Think about TLC, or the Transportation and Land Use Connection Program. Another planning technical assistance opportunity is our station area planning. So a little bit of background on station area planning. In 2022, there was legislation requiring cities who either have a fixed rail or BRT station, bus rapid transit, BRT, or they have a portion of the station area radius in their community. If you're wondering if that's you, come talk to us and we'll make sure you know if you have an obligation to do some of this. But there was legislation requiring those communities to produce a station area plan. And so we have a couple of roles with station area planning, both technical assistance and certification. In certification of station area plans, what the Wasatch Front Regional Council is here to do is make sure that these plans are meeting certain criteria and accomplishing the station area plan goals, which are there on the screen: increase the availability and affordability of housing, promote sustainable environmental conditions, enhance access to opportunities, and increase transportation choices and connections. So that's the station area planning legislation actually came out of a quest to create more housing opportunities around station areas. So it was really with a housing initiative first, and we want to make sure we're helping your communities create really well-rounded plans that work for your city and meet these goals. So in certifying these plans, the Regional Growth Committee recommends to the Wasatch Front Regional Council that these plans are certified, and then that is part of your moderate income housing planning requirements if you're aware of what those are. On the technical assistance side, we essentially have funding and technical expertise to help you get this done. So we have, in partnership with UTA, the Mountain Land Association of Governments, and the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, we're administering a total pot of $5 million. We're about halfway through that money now, but all of it is just essentially to help you accomplish your station area planning obligations and really come up with a great plan that works for your community. So we're working on 19 projects right now that have been funded, and there's more work to do. Most of these station area plans have a deadline of 2025. So this work has a little bit of fire under it. Talk to us if you think you're a city that needs to do a station area plan. Odds are we're working with your staff now, but we'd love to get you up to speed as well. And just reach out. We have some information online and we can talk to you about this anytime. Okay, so there's some of our planning technical assistance activities. Generally, we're here to help you. You don't need to know exactly which program is a fit. Just reach out. I'm going to turn it over now to Marcia White, who's going to talk about our economic development district and our comprehensive economic development strategy.
Thanks, Meg. I'll briefly run through what I get to do, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you. Hang in there, we're almost done. Just so you know, the Wasatch Front Economic Development District was created in 2014 under the umbrella of the Wasatch Front Regional Council. And I say this because of the work that we do. The district's mission is to support the economic development plans and promote long-term economic competitiveness across the state using and attracting federal money. So I get to help members and partners try to secure some economic development administration funding. The board is made up of representatives from the 5 counties, our elected officials from 5 counties, but we also bring in businesses, education institutions, and other partners and stakeholders to our board to really try to get an idea of what's going on in the economic development world. As Meg said earlier, we are lucky enough to create a comprehensive economic development strategy every 5 years. And this year we really focused for this next 5 years on really how can we help bring forward the Wasatch Choice vision. And so you can see that we have 4 key strategies: promoting the development of cities and towns, facilitating economic development capacity, supporting the human capital development and workforce gaps, and then leveraging a diverse business environment, knowing that if we have all of our eggs in one basket, that's not very good if one of them falls out. So we're trying to make sure that we bring a variety of businesses to our region. We get to work with a lot of the members, but one of the things is that we don't necessarily create economic development strategies for the region, but we augment the strategies that are already taking place, whether that's at the state of Utah, any of the cities or towns, educational institutions, those kind of things. So we are here to support and do whatever you need to have us do to help you with your economic development needs. And I'll turn the time back to Meg, or actually I'm going to turn it back over to Christy.
Thanks, Marcia. I believe this is our last program slide, so we're almost there. I'm going to talk super briefly about the Community Development Block Program, Grant Program, or CDBG. The CDBG program that WFRC administers is for the small cities, so that's the non-entitlement communities, which includes Morgan, Tooele, and Weber counties, and excludes Ogden City for the eligible communities for this program. It's a federal competitive grant program on an annual application cycle. The purpose is to assist in development of viable communities by providing decent housing and a suitable living environment, principally for persons of low and moderate income. We don't know our total 2024 funding amount yet, but generally we average about $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million lately a year for this program. There's different activity types that are eligible under CDBG. There's safety equipment purchases, construction, and then some public services, such as funding for nonprofits that is eligible through CDBG. A couple examples of projects is listed below. Some of our most common CDBG projects include infrastructure, installation or improvements such as water or sewer, or street improvements, or ADA upgrades, things like that. And then on the other side, you have some examples of the community services or nonprofit services that are eligible as well through CDBG. So I know that only includes 3 of the counties in our region, but everyone has access to CDBG funds, whether that be through WFRC or not. So if you do have any questions about CDBG, whether you're in one of those communities or not, feel free to reach out and I can help connect you to, the person who would administer CDBG for you in your area. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Andrew.
Christy, thank you very much, and Meg and team, thank you very much. Folks, we've covered all of the substantive information and the introductions to our team here that we were going to cover. I'll give you a little logistical information here, and I want to just for a few minutes open it up and see if any of you have a burning question that you're brave enough to ask in front of the group here. Just as a note, so we are located in downtown Salt Lake, just on the west side of Salt Lake, at the Gateway, at the north end of the Gateway, just off of the Olympic Plaza. And I can't believe we've gotten through this whole meeting with nobody saying any reference to the 2034 Olympics, which we're all planning for together as well. And I'll note that our office is accessible by transit, the front runner, and tracks, by biking and walking, and then of course also by driving. We're conveniently located in between along I-15 between the 6 North and 6 South exits, and we do have a parking garage that's in our building along 50 North when you're coming here. So let's go one more slide. I'll say again how much we appreciate all of you participating with us today. We have multiple ways for you to stay informed about the work that we do. We have a newsletter that goes out roughly once a month, a general newsletter. We also have, I mentioned at the very beginning, during legislative times, Miranda does a weekly legislative newsletter. And what we'd love to do, if you don't get our general newsletter, you really should. You should already. We should have all of your names on there. But if you think, wait a second, I don't get that, will you just drop a note to us in the chat so that we can make sure that we add you? And then we also, of course, use social media to push out information about the work that we're doing, things happening in our region. And I said this once before, I'll say it again. If there are great things that you're doing in your work, please share them with us. There may be an opportunity for us to help highlight the work that you're doing, or perhaps that we're doing together. And we'd love to see and help you tell your stories as well. Let me now just see if anybody on here would like to offer we'll just take just a few minutes for brief comments and questions. There don't have to be. I see Nate has dropped into the chat a way for you to sign up for our newsletter. That's terrific.
Andrew, there is a hand
yeah.
up, and I think
Oh, Mayor
I don't know
Burke.
if you got to Blaine's question or comment in the chat as well.
Okay, I see Mayor Burke's hand up. Go right ahead.
Thank you. This is very informative. And my question may sound a bit blasphemous, but all of this is very oriented towards growth and expansion. Is there any thought in what the end state is? Because at some point there may be a steady state, and what that would be and how it would get there, and what would lead to that?
That's a really interesting question, Mayor Burke from the town of Alta. I'm gonna ask Ted to comment on that, but I'll just say I'll give one sort of sense of perspective. The concern about growth. We're growing so fast. We're not going to have enough water. It's going to be challenging for transportation. These concerns that we have in our community now have been with us for generations. It's quite remarkable, actually. The organization Envision Utah has pulled some amazing information about this, where around the turn of the century, the last century, so 124 years ago, there's media, newspapers where people are saying, we're growing so fast, we're going to run out of land, we're going to run out of resources. So this challenge, growth, it's our constant companion. Having said that, Mayor, there is something, in a planning term that's referred to as build out. And like, is there a point at which we can't absorb any more growth, or the impacts are so significant that it really does become even more problematic? And to that, I'll look to anybody on our team who wants to offer a brief reaction to the mayor's point.
Mayor, I would just add as well that I think it is a great question that you're posing. To me, I think part of the question then in turn comes around to, well, how does that happen? How do constraints lead to less growth? And so it's a question of sort of pragmatically, how would you do it? I'm not sure that transportation is your mechanism. I think the parts of the country that slow down in growth most recently are the places that their economy falls apart, and that really slows down growth. Part of what we do then that I think is a pragmatic approach towards your question is, we can't control very much how much we grow, but we can control the impacts of growth. We can affect the per capita negative effects of growth. And we can think about how we can do that through things that we've talked about here just today in the Wasatch Choice vision of enabling reduce those per capita impacts. So I would just leave you also with that, just this question of pragmatism. And in the face of an awesome question like that, I think one approach is to think about, how do we reduce our per capita impacts?
Well, I just might observe that nothing grows forever. And I mean, that's obvious truism. So at some point, things stop. And it's kind of interesting to think about when, how, and under what conditions that will occur. But that's pretty long term. I probably won't be around for that. So the younger people in this on this panel have more to worry about than I do. Thank you.
I'll just throw out a kind of perspective from the analytics group. We work with the University of Utah's Gardner Policy Center extensively. They produce county level growth forecasts. and we constrain our small area forecasts to what they project at the county level. So like what we're projecting for a city or a traffic analysis zone in Salt Lake County, that's all got to add up to their projections. And we do this reforecasting. We revisit the regional transportation plan every 4 years. So, you know, like we're not making a big forecast and a plan that just lives forever. We're tuning it every 4 years. That's the cycle. And in that cycle, our kind of base level numbers for population, for households, for employment are changing every time because the forecast is being adapted to reflect things like a declining birth rate in our region, steeply declining birth rate. So family size is going down, number of households is going up because of that. And then of course the nature of employment is changing, and things like in-migration to the region are in large part canceling out the fact that our family sizes are smaller. But I just wanted to make the point that we're looking at all of this and that we're revisiting, you know, the growth numbers in different kind of components of what the Wasatch makes up the Wasatch Front on this every 4 year cycle, because we know that we're changing all the time.
If you like talking about these types of issues, WFRC is a place for you. Chris Sloan, I see you have your hand up.
Thanks, Andrew. I think I just wanted to pile on what Bert just said regarding the end of growth. I think you could substitute the word change with growth almost interchangeably, because, you know, I'm not one of the young people anymore, and I'm not going to see anything come to a screaming halt growth-wise. But I think we're going to see changes in that growth, whether it's a move west, whether it's a move east, whether it's lifestyle changes, economic changes that push things in different directions. So I don't foresee a situation where growth/change ever stops. Change by its very definition is exactly that. So I think there's always going to be a place for planning, which is what this organization is great at. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be a plan for growth. It may be a plan for change. It may be a plan to deal with a lack of growth. So again, saying some of the things that have already been said, but I don't think to use the mayor's term, I don't think there's an end game here. I don't think there's a day on February 22nd, 2039, we say, okay, we're done, and everything's exactly how it's going to be.
Chris, I hope somebody wrote that date down and somebody will track it in the calendar. on that date in 2039, somebody should say, was Chris right in his prediction? He's not making that prediction, of course. Just trying to be funny. You know, thank you very much. In the interest of time, we'll stop questions and comments there. But I will say again that we would love to talk with you. We will love to see you engaged in our meetings, be it Zoom or in person. We'd love to come have our team and our staff come visit with you in your communities. You know, bottom line, we just love the opportunity to work with you to help you achieve your objectives so that we can promote great quality of life in our region for generations to come. Now we're growing really fast. You know, things will change as time goes on. And I know that by working together and putting our efforts together, we can maintain and again, even enhance that quality of life. Now, I want to say that one of the things that we do, and this is sort of our last piece of this meeting, we work to make sure that all of our communities have access to opportunities to thrive. We care about all of our region and all the people in our region. And so, in fact, also, we are actually required by federal law as an agency that is sort of recognized by the federal government and gets federal funding to ensure that we have no discrimination in the work that we do or the programs that we administer. And the U.S. Department of Transportation provides this video about Title VI, which is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, about non-discrimination in programs that use federal funding. And they offered up and suggested that we show this video at our new member orientation. So that's the next thing we're going to do. Please feel free to watch the video. You can also drop off at whenever you want, but what we'll do is this is going to be the last thing that we're going to do, and then the meeting is going to end. So I just want to say again, thank you all so much, and let's keep working together for our shared future. Okay, whoever's doing it, Jordan, take it away.
State and local transit agencies receiving Federal Transit Administration funds are required to uphold Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, a landmark piece of civil rights legislation that outlaws discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin.
Title VI of the Civil Rights Act specifically states that any programs and activities receiving federal assistance cannot discriminate on the basis of race, color, or national origin. At FTA, one of our top priorities is making sure that public transportation service is provided to all in a non-discriminatory manner. To this end, it is essential for all FTA grantees to have a well-planned Title VI program in place to prevent discrimination, promote public inclusion, and have the means to address, avoid, and mitigate any discriminatory actions and activity. This may seem like a lot of work, but Title VI protections are essential in promoting and upholding a better America.
This video will describe FTA's Title VI requirements for a grantee's programs, policies, and activities. To ensure Title VI compliance, grantees should become familiar with FTA's Title VI Circular 4702.1b. 4702.1b clarifies and updates FTA's Title VI requirements and guidance. This video is a general overview tailored to assist FTA grantees and provide the public with a basic understanding of the Title VI requirements. More detailed information and other resources can be found on FTA's Title VI and Civil Rights Training Materials web pages. FTA grantees must comply with Title VI as a condition of receiving financial assistance from FTA. Regardless of how a grantee receives its federal funds, it still must satisfy the Title VI requirements. Most grantees receive funds directly from FTA and will submit their Title VI program plans directly to FTA. These are known as direct recipients. Some recipients are considered primary recipients because they pass federal funds to other agencies, known as subrecipients. As a subrecipient, you still have a responsibility to prepare and submit a plan. For example, if you receive federal funds only through a state, you would submit your Title VI program directly to the state. Grantees must submit their program plan to FTA by the posted due date to ensure it can be reviewed and concurred with before it expires. An expired status can hinder approval of FTA grants. Submission due dates are posted on the FTA website. Key to the grantee's Title VI program submission is ensuring it obtains its Board of Directors or similar decision-making body approval. Now let's talk about developing a program. A Title VI program will include a public notice, instructions to the public regarding how they can file a Title VI discrimination complaint with the agency, a list of any public transportation-related Title VI complaints, investigations, or lawsuits filed with the recipient since the time of the last submission, a public participation plan, a language access plan, and an equity analysis only if the grantee is required to, and has prepared one during the past 3 years for facilities or service and fare. Equity analyses will be discussed in detail in FTA's training video, Understanding How to Conduct a Service and Fare Change for Title VI Compliance. If a transit agency is applying for FTA funds for the first time, it will be required to provide information to supplement its Title VI program. First-time grantees are encouraged to contact their respective regional civil rights officer before developing a program. Title VI requires that recipients of federal funds notify the public of their rights against discrimination. At a minimum, information must be published on the grantee's website, as well as areas where the public may interact with the transit agency. Examples of this include displaying posters or providing pamphlets in reception areas, meeting rooms, or service areas such as transit stations, bus stops, or even inside transit vehicles. The notice should state that the agency operates programs without regard to race, color, or national origin, and include a description of the procedures that the public should follow to get more information on the grantee's Title VI obligations. The notice must also state procedures for the public to file a Title VI complaint. To ensure compliance with the handling of complaints, a grantee must develop a procedure for informing, accepting, investigating, and tracking any filed Title VI complaints. Title VI complaint forms must be available for the public's use, along with information on how to file a complaint. At a minimum, these should be available online. The next requirement is recording and reporting Title VI complaints, investigations, and lawsuits. This report must include the date of the complaint, investigation, or lawsuit, a summary of the allegation, status of it, and any actions taken. If the grantee is a primary recipient, it must also adopt procedures for tracking and investigating Title VI complaints that are filed against it. Subrecipients must also establish a formal complaint process, either by creating their own or by adopting portions of the primary recipient's procedures and policies. This can include the notice to the public informing them of their Title VI rights, procedures on how to file a Title VI complaint, and a Title VI complaint form. The subrecipient is still responsible for notifying passengers and other interested persons of their rights and how an individual may file discrimination complaints directly with the subrecipient. Again, the subrecipient can adopt the primary recipient's complaint form and process. However, they are still responsible for its enforcement, monitoring, and overall management. The next requirement is to make the public aware of the grantee's Title VI responsibilities. A grantee is responsible for determining what public outreach measures are most effective based on a demographic analysis of the populations affected, the type of plan, program, and service under consideration, and the resources available. A public outreach plan or process must include procedures to provide adequate notice of public participation activities, as well as early and continuous opportunities for public review and comment. Some examples include scheduling meetings at times and locations that are convenient for constituents, or coordinating with community and faith-based organizations and educational institutions with relationships to minorities and LEP groups. Effective strategies for engaging minority and low-income populations and persons with limited English proficiency can be found in the FTA Circular 4703.1 Environmental Justice Policy Guidance for Federal Transit Administration recipients. Title VI prohibits discrimination by recipients of federal financial assistance on the basis of race, color, and national origin, including the denial of meaningful access for limited English proficient or LEP persons. LEP refers to persons for whom English is not their primary language and have a limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. A recipient's Title VI program must include a plan for providing language assistance to LEP persons, which is referred to as a Language Assistance Plan, or LAP. In order to establish a LAP, the recipient first conducts a four-factor analysis that examines the following. How many LEP persons are served? When evaluating this factor, grantees must look at how many and how do LEP persons interact with the recipient's agency? Who are these LEP communities? How many languages do they speak? This is needed to determine the appropriate language services for each group. What are the literacy skills of each LEP group in their native languages? This determines whether the translation of documents will be an effective practice. And lastly, are LEP persons underserved due to language barriers? The second factor to analyze is how often do LEP persons come into contact with transit programs. This includes surveying key program areas and assessing major points of contact with the public. The third factor is assessing what the LEP populations consider essential services, as well as the most effective means to provide language assistance to them. This can be done by holding facilitated meetings with LEP groups. Lastly, a grantee needs to manage resources and costs, consider technological advances, reasonable business practices, and sharing of language assistance materials and services between recipients, advocacy groups, LEP populations, and federal agencies. Grantees serving a significant number of LEP persons should ensure that their resource limitations are well substantiated before using this factor as a reason to limit language assistance. Grantees use the results for the four-factor analysis to determine which language assistance services are appropriate in order to develop its LAP. At a minimum, the LAP should contain the results of the four-factor analysis, including the description of the LEP population served, a description of how assistance services will be provided by language, communication methods to LEP persons about the availability of language assistance, how the plan is evaluated and updated, and how transit employees are trained to provide timely and reasonable language assistance to your LEP populations. A good starting point for LEP communities is to translate vital documents into the language of each frequently encountered LEP group. Failure to translate these vital documents could result in you denying an eligible LEP person access to services and would constitute discrimination on the basis of national origin. Non-vital documents can be translated orally. Once you understand who your LEP populations are and you have developed your LAP, you must apply it to your Title VI efforts, including public meetings, surveys, and other documents or interactions with the public where you may need to translate information into languages other than English. The Safe Harbor provision outlines the circumstances that can provide transit agencies a safe harbor regarding the translation of written materials for LEP populations. It stipulates that a grantee is in compliance if each eligible LEP language group has written translation of vital documents. Eligible LEP groups constitute 5% or 1,000 persons of the total population qualified to be served. Written translation of vital documents are not required if there are fewer than 50 persons in a language group. Written notices should be provided in the primary language of those with limited English proficiency about their right to receive competent oral interpretation of those written materials free of cost. These safe harbor provisions apply to the translation of written documents only. They do not affect the requirement to provide meaningful access to LEP individuals through competent oral interpreters where oral language services are needed and are reasonable. If a grantee has a transit-related, non-elected planning board, advisory council or committees, or a similar committee for which it selects its memberships, the grantee must do two things. 1. Provide FTA with a table depicting the racial breakdown of its committee membership. And 2. Provide FTA with a description of the efforts made to encourage the participation of minorities on such committees. Primary recipients must monitor subrecipients to ensure that they are carrying out their plans as documented. This is important because if a subrecipient is not in compliance, then neither is the primary recipient. The primary recipient will need to document their process to ensure that all subrecipients are complying with reporting requirements. If the subrecipient is a fixed route transit provider, it also has to satisfy the corresponding requirements for fixed route transit operators. A primary recipient is required to establish a schedule to collect and review its subrecipient's Title VI programs. If a subrecipient is also a direct recipient to FTA, then the primary recipient is no longer responsible for monitoring the compliance of that subrecipient. This understanding must be formalized in an agreement. There are certain responsibilities to be mindful of when a primary recipient provides assistance to its subrecipients. If a grantee passes through funds to a subrecipient, the primary recipient must describe its process to ensure subrecipient compliance with Title VI and develop a schedule for collection and review of subrecipient Title VI program submissions. Other ways a primary can assist subrecipients in their compliance is by providing information, such as travel patterns and survey results for the subrecipient's service area, which is needed in developing their Title VI program. For example, a primary recipient may share a common service area with a subrecipient. In this case, the primary may offer the subrecipient data it has on travel patterns or its experience in conducting surveys. It is up to the subrecipient to decide how useful such assistance will be. But recipients like MPOs, states, and larger transit agencies generally know how to prepare and make this type of information readily available to its subrecipients and aid in compliance with Title VI. When a grantee is planning to site a facility, it has to conduct a Title VI equity analysis to ensure that the site location was not determined with regards to race, color, or national origin. Examples of facilities include operation centers and storage and maintenance facilities. They do not include bus stations, transit stations, or power substations, as these are evaluated during project development and the NEPA process. This equity analysis must occur during the planning stage before the selection of the preferred site and must compare the equity impacts of various site alternatives and must notice and conduct outreach to potentially impacted populations. Attention should be paid to other facilities in the preferred area, as there may be cumulative adverse impacts if any additional facility is built. To ensure proper perspective is used in the analysis, grantees should utilize the census tract or block group data. If the grantee determines that the location will result in a disparate impact on the basis of race, color, or national origin, it may only locate the facility there if there is substantially legitimate justification to do so, and it has analyzed the alternatives and found that there are no other locations that will have a less disparate impact. Civil rights compliance is central to the FTA's mission, and as a grantee, it is a condition of financial assistance. The revised Title VI circular and other training opportunities can be found on FTA's Civil Rights website.
Those of you that are still with us, thank you very much. I recognize that that video was aimed more at us as an agency to make sure that we're aware of what our obligations are. And perhaps this is stating the obvious, but I want to be clear, we fulfill all of our requirements under federal law. And more generally, as I said before, we work really hard to make sure that all of our communities have access to opportunities to thrive. So with that said, for the lingering of those of you who are still here, thank you very much again. And to our team here at WFRC who put this together, nice work. And thanks so much to all of you. Everybody have a great day.